One thing I think listeners would be curious about is the change to your role as a leader that installing, I should say, growing this this executive team to where they are now. What that has freed you up to do and how your role has changed. So you're talking a little bit about the tension between like visionary and integrator, or like big picture versus like day to day kind of stuff. How has Dan's week to week changed as this group matures, and where do you think it's going in the future? Do you anticipate you spending more time in certain places of your business than you were before? Like, just maybe for someone who's looking at this going, what Dan's talking about, that's where I'm going. They're probably wondering like how your actual role and responsibilities and focus, mental focus, where your energy kind of shifts and goes to as you transition.
Yeah, really, really good question. So when I had the third business partner that was operating as the CFO and the COO, I was spending the vast majority of my time in sales and building salespeople, right? So when he leaves and I basically ask for the reins, well, all of a sudden the company's depending on my sales, plus they're depending on me to be a leader and direct the ship in the right direction. So what was really interesting was I couldn't stop what I was currently doing, right? This 60-hour work week of producing sales and building salespeople.
Right.
And so I've got to start this transition of working on the business and not in the business as much. And so for years, probably 2 or 3 years, I actually worked more, not less. So I'm doing the 60 hours I was already doing, plus now I'm shoving 5 to 10 additional hours down the pipe on working on the business. And then what ends up happening is this transition from substantially in the business to substantially on the business. And you end up gaining this momentum where the beautiful part of doing that upfront work and upfront investment is I feel like the bigger you get, the better your team is, the more freedom and liberty you have, and the easier your job actually gets. And so it is very much this, today I'm going to live like no one else. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to put seeds in the ground. I'm investing in the future, and I'll reap a harvest in 2, 3, 4 years. So I started that super hard work back in 2018, and now in 2022, the vast majority of my time is spent with my senior leadership team and really coaching, training, and developing them. And that's been a hard challenge for me as the CEO, because I'm very used to making all the big decisions. I'm very used to being totally in control. I'm very used to understanding and knowing everything that's happening, every rally customer to every award and certification. And about 1.5 years ago, when we hired 240 Solutions, this cultural training group, he coached me. He asked me one day, he said, Dan, do you really want leaders, or do you just like the idea of having strong people in your organization?
That's a great question, isn't it?
Yeah, man. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, so you have a senior leadership meeting and you lead it and you talk most of the time and you already have the solution and you're just laying the solution out. How are you ever going to build leaders like that? I'm like, okay, so I had to walk away saying like, wow, do I really want leaders? Like, do I really want to do I want to give my baby away and trust it with other people? And am I really okay with them failing? Am I really okay with them not doing it the Dan way? Am I okay with that? And so I had a heart check of, am I saying this or do I really want it? And so I had to go back to him kind of tail tucked, like, man, you're right. I've been saying I want leaders, but I've not been acting like it. And so what does that look like? He's like, just randomly don't show up to a senior leadership meeting. Just see what happens. Just randomly walk out in the middle of the meeting. Stop talking. Just literally stop talking in the middle of the meeting and see what happens. And what I found was the less I showed up, the less I talked, and the less I did, the more space I created for them to blossom, to have their own unique ideas. Like one of the things he said to me, he said, Dan, you have to be very, very careful about ever making statements. Why? He's like, because when the CEO and founder makes a statement, it must be true. you don't give them room to challenge. You don't give them room to have ideas. You don't give them room to own, because you made a statement and it's solidified. And now it's just, we got to build on Dan's idea, And so over the last year, it's this discipline of really trying to truly hand it off, not get involved when it goes a little bit sideways, shut my mouth, stop showing up to meetings they expect me to come to. And then I get an update and I'm like, okay, well, they did 95% of what I would have wanted them to do, and they had 5% that's different, and it's substantially better.
Right.
Yeah, well, because they're working as a team, right? A true team. And they have all these different people in the widget scale working together versus me. I'm this wonder and invention guy, and I stay in wonder and invention. Yeah. And I don't have the discernment, galvanizing, tenacity, and enablement giftings. They're very weak for me, and they take energy from me. I hate it, but when I'm running the show, I've got to operate all up and down the spectrum, and it's not balanced and it's draining.
Yeah, it's very interesting, that whole question he posed to you of like, do you really want leaders, or do you just like the idea? That really hits home for me, because I feel like this whole concept, and we're talking about today, an executive team and all these C-level roles and all these fancy titles, it's like a very sexy idea that I think people get caught up in. And it's talked about in books like Traction and the E-Myth, and every business guru online is saying that you need that so that you can step out. And of course, this is the next logical step for a business owner, for an entrepreneur like yours with a big vision for the business. This is something you need. I'm not questioning that. What I'm commenting on is the realization of, like, when you bring on leaders, they are there to lead. That's the central word there. And so you need to accept the fact that there's going to be shots that get called by other people, not you. And they're probably going to get it right a lot of the time. There's going to be every once in a while where they get it wrong. And that, I think, is a very difficult pill to swallow, because now, it's like you can, when you're kind of obsessed with your own, the organism that is your business, you can be okay with yourself really blowing it. When other people do it, that's a whole new level of just like acceptance. But I think the net result over the long term is accumulatively, they're going to get better, and they're actually going to get to a point where they surpass your ability to make the right decision, to fix the right problem, to bring on the right person. And I just think that comment about, like, do you really want leaders, is a good one. The other thing I thought you spoke to really well was that period where you were already working 60 hours a week and you had to go a little bit harder. Would you say to someone who's listening to this, who maybe is a couple rungs down the ladder from where you are now, is it fair to say, hey, it actually gets a little bit worse before it gets a lot better?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, as the leader, you're going back to school, right? Because there's an admitting of what I'm doing right now isn't good enough, or what I'm doing right now won't take me to where we want to go. So you have to start there. And to me, if you've never built a business from 0 to 20 million, right? You've got to get with somebody that knows how to get that business from 0 to 20. And so there's that initial investment in yourself. I wholeheartedly believe that as the owner, your greatest investment is first yourself, because there's this trickle-down effect. Everything that I learn gets deployed to the executive team, gets deployed to the senior management team, gets deployed to the management team and down, and it just trickles down. So it really starts with you. I'll be honest, I spend over $250,000 a year in coaching, and it's been the greatest ROI I've ever got, right? So during that period, I'm not only learning and being super intentional in learning, so I'm doing my job, plus I've got to go back to school. I'm basically doing night classes to get my master's. And then I got to do the hard work of executing on those things that I'm learning, right? And so it's frustrating, it's draining, but it goes back to the vision. Like, what is your vision? Do you really see it? Because you got to decide, like, do I want a lifestyle business? Do I want a business that I want to exit? Do I want to build a legacy business? What is it that I'm looking for, right? And I was always looking for a legacy business. I was never looking for an exit. I was never looking for a lifestyle business. It's not the way I'm written, And so I had to look hard in the mirror and say, do I have the skills, talents, and ability to take this where it needs to go? It's like, no, I don't. I don't know what I don't know. And so it's been a long journey of really, really, super hyper investing in myself and working substantially more hours than I really wanted.
Yeah.
But, just 4 years later, I own all these other companies. And at this point, I'll be honest, a year and a half ago, I said to 240 Solutions, this company cannot run without me. And I truly believed it at the time. And I don't know, I might have been right. I may not have, I don't know, because I didn't give them the freedom to own it. Today, 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt, this company would run with me and out Ryan. It would look different, but they would thrive, they would smash. And it's because we have given them the liberty to truly own. And when we did that, it's almost like they got wings and they came alive, right? Like, we're watching these people come alive, and the gold that we saw is coming to the surface. And these people that had this underlying talent and confidence, their life is different forever, right? And that to me is the ultimate. Like, I love our customers, I love roofing, but my vision is our team and them doing that, right? Like, running and doing what they love and taking care of their family in a different way than they ever could, because this industry changed my life, and that's what I want for them.
Yeah. It's like when you leave a leadership vacuum, the right people just organically fill it. They just kind of get sucked into it and see that, hey, you know what? There's actually a little bit of extra room at the top here. There's a little bit more I can take on, and these are the skills I'm going to need to develop and cultivate within myself. And it just sort of happens when you've assembled the right people. And that's, going back to the early part of the episode, I think that's why you work so hard at this top of funnel stuff. That's why you're always looking. I'm curious how you strike. Listen, if you like that clip, you can watch the full episode by clicking here. If you're not yet subscribed, you probably should be, and you can do that by clicking right here.